Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan from the Life at SAP team, and I welcome you to today's Ignite Your Power, Becoming the Best Version of You session with Rae Kyriazis and Jean Fava. Rae Kyriazis is the Global Vice President of Field Transformation and Readiness of the Global Vice President of the Field Transformation and Readiness team. And Rae has been working in enterprise software for over 30 years in sales and sales leadership roles. So over the last 7 years, she has led the creation and expansion of the first ever global sales training program, having now graduated 1,200 plus associates from 65 countries who perform on par or better than experienced sales professionals. Jean Fava likes to define himself as an innovator and simplifier. He was born in Venezuela, studied international relations in Caracas, and then moved to Barcelona, where he continued his academic career on international business. Jean has worked in different companies as a salesperson, including SAP, and now manages a global program to simplify the sales experience for SAP employees and increase their satisfaction. Jean is often seen in mountain trails or cycling around Barcelona, two of his biggest hobbies. We want this to be an interactive dialogue, so please feel free to share your questions as we go. Rae and Jean, take it away.
Thank you so much, Ryan, and a pleasure to be with everyone today. When we think about igniting our power, we only have to really study what's going on around us. And as the VUCA world is accelerating, the dynamics of our environment continue to challenge us. We see more and more uncertainty. Somebody recently described it to me as it's almost as if we've lost our compass. And so in this VUCA world, what are the tools, the practices that we can do to stay centered in our power and to be effective in whatever place we find ourselves, in our personal lives, in our professional lives? In addition to all these dynamics and the change happening around us and the uncertainty in organizations, we also see a propelling change and evolution of those organizations. Traditionally, organizations were centered and focused on profit and hierarchy and controlling, planning, and privacy. And there's two major forces that are really pushing the evolution of the organizations. One is technology. The technology advancements, for example, in networks, have enabled us to connect with one another in a more global, holistic way. Example of that is LinkedIn. And of course, there's many more technology examples. The second force is the dynamics of the workforce. 5 to 10 years ago, we had 2 to 3 generations in the workforce. Today, globally, our workforces are evolving so quickly that in most companies today, over 50% of the workforce is digital natives, millennials, and Gen Z. And what's happening with the technology, the changing workforce, the majority of our workforce being digital natives, is we're evolving from this profit focus to profit and purpose, from hierarchies to hierarchies and networks, from controlling to empowerment, planning to experimentation, and privacy to transparency. And to be powerful, we need to be able to do both. And this is what we call and both leadership. So today we're going to spend a few minutes talking about some of the core principles of and both leadership. Let's start with the growth mindset, which is our choice to choose our mindset. This is the shift from when we say that won't work, I don't feel comfortable with that, to shifting into how can we make that possible? How might we solve this problem? Asking those open-ended questions and stepping into the unknown, which again, as I said in the opening, there's tremendous amounts of unknown for all of us right now. So that's your mindset, and we all can choose our mindset every day. Then it goes into our behaviors, this notion of a multiplier. And the way I think about a multiplier and a diminisher is this multiplier brings everybody's best thinking forth and invites that creativity and collective intelligence in a safe space. Whereas a diminisher might come in and be a know-it-all. They might tell and test people saying, you know, prove to me how smart you are. And the diminisher can tend to suck the energy out of the room at times. And finally, the third pillar of and both leadership, that center of power that each and every one of us can access, is about empathy. Empathy is really getting into that other person's shoes. And again, we've had so many opportunities over the last many months to really practice empathy and get over into somebody else's situation and be curious and be open-minded to explore what might be happening and how can we build a bridge of connection and communication. So in summary, igniting our power is really about the three core pillars: growth mindset, multiplier behavior, and empathy. Jean and I met about 6 years ago, and he is somebody who has been extremely diligent and focused and passionate to grow his own skills and his own awareness. So John, let me just start by asking you, what's been your experience, both personally and professionally, in navigating the complexity and uncertainty of all the things that you've faced over the last 6 years?
So Rae, thank you for having me, and hello everyone. I think it is a journey, and through that journey, what I have learned is that there are things that you need to accept because they are outside of your control, and there are things that are in your control, which if you can, you need to change. And that is part of the growth mentality that you were mentioning, to really understand, to be self-aware, to see that difference between the things that are in your control and the things that are outside of your control.
So true. And so much of our energy is so precious right now, right? And when we put our energy into things that are out of our control, it just can really tend to drain us and to feel exhausting and even perhaps overwhelming. And I'm wondering, when we focus more on the things that are in our control, sometimes there's people that come into our experience, again, professionally, personally, that perhaps might be operating in that fixed mindset, or even when we feel that we're in our most centered, grounded place, they might be coming at us from maybe a place of negativity or cynicism. How do you deal with that?
It's so true what you're mentioning, and it's not easy to deal with that. I think I consider myself an optimistic person. Now, if you ask me, are you optimistic 24 hours a day, 365 days a year? No, there are some days where I wake up and I want to stay in bed and I don't want to talk to anyone. But part of that self-awareness, of that growth mindset, is also to realize those days where you are having a growth mindset, where you are being optimistic, and try to really use that energy to reach out to people, have important conversations. If you have stakeholders that you planned a very important meeting, then have that conversation when you're feeling optimistic. If you, on the other hand, are not feeling that optimistic on a particular day, then maybe try to push those meetings to another day. Try not to go to your colleagues and impose this bad vibration or energy on them as part of your self-awareness process.
Yeah, it's so interesting how important for us to be in our power, having that constant self-awareness, right? And checking in with ourselves. You know, one of the things that I often talk about is, you know, doing those self audits, right? And asking yourself, like, I'm not feeling you know, as energized or as motivated right now. What do I need to do to fill my vessel, to energize myself? And being aware that maybe just, you know, a walk outside or listening to some great music that makes me feel, you know, really happy and joyful can help. What are some of the things that practices that you've built to, you know, kind of stay in that energized and inspired experience, maybe when you don't have the opportunity to move the meeting or shift your calendar around?
Right. I think I am very lucky to have discovered some of my passions some time ago, professionally and personally. So as you can see on my background personally, I love nature. I love being in a mountain. I love cycling around nature. And these are things that really energize me, and I try to do them as much as possible because I know they will allow me to perform better, not only in my personal life, but also in my professional life. And in my professional life, I think I've been through different roles, different companies, different industries. And the thing that I found all my roles had in common and I liked was solving complex programs or problems and bringing simplicity to things that everyone tends to say, oh, this is too complex, this is too complicated, but in my view can be simplified.
So that's kind of like your superpower, isn't it?
It kind of is, yeah.
That opportunity, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's what's given me that energy to continue and to be happy when I go to the office, or now that we are at home and we're having so many meetings, to actually have those meetings with an optimistic view, which we've talked about.
And choosing that optimistic mindset. I'm curious, when I talk to a lot of people, you know, people kind of struggle with understanding what is their passion. Tell us, if you would be willing to share, you know, how did you discover it? Did it just happen one day, or has it been a journey? What's been your experience in really discovering this passion you have around solving complex problems?
I think it is a journey. I think some people might discover it very young and some others when they're very old. Some people might not even discover it in their lives, but what is important for me is to actually ask yourself the question, what brings me happiness? What energizes me? What do I like about the things that I do inside the office or outside the office? Those are the questions that we tend not to ask ourselves, and that really give us some insights into, okay, so this is something that I really feel good about when I'm doing. What am I not doing more of this? Or how can I move my career towards a position where that particular thing will be where I spend the majority of my time working?
Yeah, I can so relate to that. And, you know, in my own journey, I didn't know my passion probably until I was quite late in my 30s. And then when it started to reveal itself, you know, one of the things that I've learned in discovering your passion, it's that thing that just feels almost effortless, right? Like a lot of people have to work really hard at that thing. And for you, it's like, that's not hard. That's like fun, right? And what I've discovered is that my passion is really connected to people realizing their full potential and discovering what their magic superpowers are. We all have our magic superpowers. And when you can start feeling and experiencing this notion of time standing still, or other people saying, well, that's really hard. And you're like inside going, that doesn't feel hard. That feels exciting. That feels energizing. You know, those are some great clues to, you know, all of us really igniting our own personal power.
Absolutely. And I see people are writing in the chat that learning new things and making a difference is what energizes them. So I encourage you to try to think, how can I do that more? How can I get a position that helps me do that more often? And you will see that when you find your passion, you really start being a multiplier, and inspired people inspires people. So you have all been talking to someone in your life who's very passionate about something, and you immediately feel the energy from that person. You want to help them. You want to know more about what inspires them. And that person can be you if you really find what is inspiring you. So once you find your passion, you will have the energy to also be a multiplier, which is one of the topics that we covered and I think are really important, especially in a work environment.
So great. And, you know, we are in so much uncertainty right now, and there's a lot of dynamics happening, you know, in companies with jobs. Given all of the environment around us, to build on what you're saying, Jean, one of the best suggestions that I can offer is finding a mentor. And perhaps you don't go to somebody and say, hey, you want to be my mentor? Instead, you might approach that person by saying, I observed this about you, whatever, in your presentation, in a meeting I attended, you were leading, whatever. And it was really inspiring, and I'd love to learn more from you. And just that kind of opening with a person, anybody who inspires you and you approach them by saying, wow, I'm really inspired by how you delivered that message, how you communicate it, whatever that is that's inspiring, and connecting with them and being curious. Again, this is building on the empathy, getting over there in that person's shoes. That can also be a great way to create greater self-awareness, you know, by looking in the mirror and also learning from somebody else who has, you know, clearly traveled on this path, perhaps ahead of you.
I agree. And now that you're talking about reaching out to people and finding mentors, I think one of the pieces where I find also joy and that inspiration or energy is when I work on a diverse environment. And I think moving through your professional life, you need to learn how to reach out to people that you normally wouldn't reach out because they're different, from a different background. It can be a professional background. It can be they are coming from another region, they're coming from another country and have a different culture. The amount of insights and new ideas these people can give to you are incredible. But normally, we don't reach out to them. We don't feel open enough to start a conversation or a relation with those people just because they are different. So I think that's also part of the journey, to reach out to those people and try to have a conversation and find out what do you have in common, what do you not have in common, and what new ideas that brings to you and your professional and personal life.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's a question in chat just to build on what you were saying, which is, you know, what is the most important trait SAP workers should have? As we, again, emphasizing this highly dynamic environment, and we're a very large company, 100,000 plus employees, is this ability to work across, it builds exactly on what Jean was saying, work across organizations, work both vertically and horizontally. Again, really understanding your own work environment, to have a good emotional intelligence, empathy with the immediate surroundings that you're in, and then also being intentional and purposeful about building your network and your community beyond your immediate environment. And that awareness, as Jean is saying, is incredibly powerful to be able to, continue to grow your own skills, grow your own awareness, and, build more bridges across the world. I think the greatest power of SAP as a company is our collective intelligence. We've operated a lot of companies on, the left side of the shift have operated in very traditional organizational charts, going up hierarchies. And with the networks just exponentially exploding, being able to really build those connections and bridges across the organization is incredibly important for everyone, no matter where they sit in the organization.
Fully agree with you, Rae. Ultimately, I think we all want to work with people who are passionate, who have a growth mindset, who say, how can we do this instead of, no, we cannot do this? And who also are multipliers and connect you with other people that can help you, who ultimately have empathy to be on your shoes, ask you the right questions, and try to help you out and come up with a better way of doing things.
Yeah, totally. Okay, maybe we can transition, Jean, a little bit to, some of the questions preparing for today that we both are asked in our roles. As so many of us are working from home, what suggestions do you have to stay connected to that growth mindset?
So I think staying curious is always something that helps. Trying to really understand whether you are in that optimistic mood or not is also something that helps. And as we said, doing more of what you like. So even if you are at home, and I'm sure that every country is managing this situation differently, but I still go out with my bike. I still go out running because I know those are the things that energize me. I still call friends that are not in, or former colleagues that are not in SAP anymore, because I have interesting conversations with them. And that inspiration that they give me also brings me energy.
I can so relate to that. For me, it's about as well hiking and being outside and doing yoga, just moving my body. I've been practicing yoga for many, many years, and I find my yoga practice is just really deepening. And that physical connection helps me stay centered in my mental control and focus on growth mindset. And so let's just, another question that we often get asked, when we're surrounded by fixed mindset people or, diminishers, which it's normal, it's going to happen. We need to be prepared for it. What are some of the strategies or best practices that can help us really navigate someone who might be, in a negative place?
So I will tell you my experience, and I'm sure everyone has a different answer to this question, and there's no right or wrong answer. In my current role, I talk to so many stakeholders that have been working not only in SAP, but different companies for so many years. They have seen so many different things. And somehow you feel like they've lost that passion, that thing that inspires them. And they have moved from a growth mindset to a fixed mindset. So usually when you talk to them, the answer is more about, but this is too complex, we cannot do it, instead of, okay, this is interesting, how can we do it? So I think the first thing that I could recommend is be passionate, be inspired. As we said, when you start a conversation from an inspiration point, that is kind of contagious to the other person. So even if the other person is on a fixed mindset, they will feel that energy, and that will change the way the conversation goes. So that would be my first recommendation. And the second one I would give is to really stay curious and try to understand, okay, why is the other person on this fixed mindset today? And is there something I can do to try to move them from that fixed mindset to a growth mindset? And it might be they're having a bad day. It might be that they have a specific doubt. It might be that they already tried this in the past. But by you figuring out what it really is, or maybe it's a combination of all of those things, you can handle the situation much better and guide that person back to a growth mentality where they can help you, or at least they cannot be a blocker in your project.
Such great advice. And I just couldn't agree more with what you said. Being curious, asking those open-ended questions is,
Exactly.
you know, to get that person to open up. It's incredibly important. So just in summary, you know, as we've discussed how we can be centered and grounded in our own power, first and foremost is really taking ownership of your mindset and knowing that even when we get into, you know, that mindset, Jean mentioned the days when we feel like we don't want to get out of bed, that every single day and every hour of every day, we can choose our mindset, and just noticing what steps we can be accountable for and take ownership for to, you know, push us back into that growth mindset posture. So taking ownership of your mindset first and foremost.
Yes, and if I can choose number two, I would say it is to try and discover your passion and explore what inspires you. If you do find it, again, whether it's in your professional or personal life, it will give you the energy, it will give you the strength, it will give you the inspiration to have a much better conversation throughout your day.
Yeah. And then probably third for me is the point you were making a couple minutes ago, Jean, about intentionally and purposefully meeting people that are outside of your normal comfort zone or your regular network. And, you know, using your existing connections and your existing network to, you know, hey, I'd love to meet that person. You know, my experience is everybody's willing to invest 15 minutes of their time, and just being comfortable with getting outside your comfort zone to meet new people who aren't like you, and come prepared with one or two questions that's going to inspire that person to get talking and sharing with you their experience. It's such a great way to learn and grow and expand beyond your own mental model and experience.
I agree. And Rae, I'm conscious of time, but there was one question in the chat for you that I wanted to share, and it's about salespeople. The question is, do you think that salespeople are talented by nature, or is it a skill that needs to be developed throughout time?
So I think both. And again, in the last 35 years of my career, the majority of it spent in enterprise software sales, I've seen both. I've seen some people kind of end up in sales, not sure why they ended up there, and they ended up being great salespeople because they had the motivation to learn and to grow and to be disciplined. Sales is a very disciplined, role, and you have to really put your full self into it. It's not, in my experience, a job you can fake. You got to want it. I think there's some people that knew from a very young age, they loved working with other people. They loved engaging with executives. And so it came very naturally, and they became masters at their craft. So I've really seen, both scenarios work out really well, where some people never imagined they would be in a sales position. And let's face it, I mean, Dan Pink wrote a wonderful book, To Sell is Human. And he talks about, like, all of us at some level are salespeople. So building these skills and muscles around igniting our power, whatever role we're in, we're more or less selling something. So it's a great question. And I think everybody who has a growth mindset can learn new skills if they decide they want to.
I agree. And I think we're right on time, Rae.
Okay. Thank you
So
all.
I think, yeah, thank you everyone. I know there were more questions in the chat. Sorry, we couldn't go over those, but we'll have more sessions with Rae, so I'm sure you'll want to attend those as well.
Thank you so much, Jean, and thank you everybody for joining. It's great to be with you today. Be well, stay safe, and we'll look forward
Thank
to
you guys.
next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.